Shackleton, come on in, have a seat. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm sorry we don't have a microphone in the room, so I'll just talk loudly. The people that are going to come up, you're going to have to talk loudly to be heard. Thank you so much for coming. For those of you who don't know, this is the launch party for Sophistry, which is a game that I've been working on for about 5 years now. Although, yeah, thanks. Yeah, not 5 years solid, 5 years off and on. But there we are. So for those of you who don't know me, good, this is working. I'm Jeff Brown. And my interest in life, yeah, that's the guy, that's me. My interest in life is critical thinking. And so I've created a number of brands where I help people to better understand critical thinking. There's Studio 42, which is where we have discussions about controversial topics. Sophistry, the game of half-truths, which you're going to learn about today. And Art of Mind, which is a brand where I develop workshops and educational resources. And it's been dead for about a year, but it's going to be coming back pretty soon. Thanks. So what is sophistry? Before I explain what sophistry is, I'm going to have to explain what logical fallacies are. And what is... Okay, so let's start with these two quotes. Take a look at these two quotes. And see if you can spot which one has a logical error in it. So on the left, on the left, we have Donald Trump saying, "It's freezing and snowing in New York. We need global warming." And on the right, you have Hillary Clinton saying, "Every nation has to be either with us or against us. Those who harbor terrorists or who finance them are going to pay a price."
Both.
Both?
A.
So I hear A, I hear B. I hear some people saying both.
Hold on, Jeff. What is a logical error?
Well, I'm getting there. I just want to work through it. Okay, who says A? Why do you say A? Yeah. What's wrong with A?
He went from local to global.
Okay, yeah. He went from local to global, or another way you could say is he went from something particular to something general, right? He has an anecdote, oh, look what happened in New York. We could use some global warming, right? Obviously Donald Trump doesn't believe in global warming. So he's using the example of the weather in New York, this one thing that happened, to talk about a much larger picture. That's an anecdotal fallacy, it's not logical.
Local generalization.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, an overgeneralization. Second one, what's wrong with B?
False dichotomy.
False dichotomy, yeah, it's a black and white, right? It's just saying you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. There's nothing in between. There's no subtlety, there's no gray, there's no other option. So those are examples of logical fallacies. And there are hundreds and hundreds of these. And so the point of understanding logical fallacies is that you can spot them like this. When you see them in the wild, when people are talking to you, politicians, people in the media, you can see them right away and you can recognize that there's something wrong with the way this person thinks. So to answer your question, Amanda, what are logical fallacies?
Thank you.
Let's take a look in more detail at those two quotes. And we'll talk about how the classic Greek idea of rhetoric, which is that there's these three elements, right? There's pathos, ethos, and logos. There's character, emotion, and reason. So when you listen to people speak, you're looking at these three things. But the problem here is that we have really strong intuitions for pathos and ethos. We have really strong intuitions about emotions, and we have really strong intuitions about character. When you see Hillary Clinton, when you see Donald Trump, you get a feeling from them, right? You know their character, you know who they are. Probably one of them you maybe find repulsive, the other one maybe you like them, or you probably have different feelings about them. And the way that they make you feel when they speak, by the kinds of things that they talk about, right? If you know Donald Trump is always talking about immigrants and hating on them, that probably makes you feel a certain way. Maybe you know things about the way Hillary Clinton speaks, the way she addresses policy. Maybe you find her boring. You feel a certain way when you hear these people speak, and you respond to it. But what we don't have intuitions for is reason. We don't have these intuitions where We just naturally wake up and feel something inside of us because something is logical or something is not. So learning the logical fallacies is learning to catch mistakes that people often make in their thinking. So to sum up, logical fallacies are pseudo-logical statements. They seem logical, but they're actually not. They feel true and they feel persuasive. They hit you and you say, ah, that makes a lot of sense. But if you really think about it, they're not actually valid. And you can think of them as being like optical illusions of the mind. Right? An optical illusion is something you see with your eyes. A logical fallacy is something, it's like an illusion that happens in your mind when you're thinking. So let's go through a few examples. Here's another one. Stephen Colbert, he's saying, George Bush, great president or the greatest president? What's wrong with that one?
It's only two choices. That was a shitty president.
Okay, well, there's only two choices, yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah, it is a loaded question because,
He already implied that it's a great president.
yeah, right, it's a false choice, right?
Yeah.
It's like he's giving you two choices, but they're all the same. Yeah, it's a false choice. GMOs are found in more than 70% of processed foods. More than 64 countries around the world require GMOs to be labeled or regulated. The United States does not. So she's arguing against GMOs. This is the argument. She's arguing against GMOs, against, or having, I guess, regulation about GMOs. And this is the argument.
These are three unrelated statements.
They're unrelated.
There are three facts. There's no logic there.
Okay.
I don't see an argument there, I just see a bunch of facts.
Okay. So, I see a hand. Yeah, Rita?
She's making the assumption that because 64 countries are doing it, it's the right thing. Whether
Yeah.
it is or not, but it's an assumption.
It's kind of like, remember when you were a kid and your parents said if everybody would jump off a bridge, would you do it too? Right? She's saying, yep.
She also failed to tell you why it's bad. So she's saying that GMOs are found, but she's not explaining why that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
There's no data to support what she's saying and why it's bad.
Yeah, that's true. Well, there's two sides to it, right? A logical fallacy tells you there's something wrong here, and then you would hope that in place of that, you would have a logical statement. But what we're looking for here is the mistake. And it's like you say, this is what we call an appeal to popularity. She's saying, let's do this because it's popular. But like you say, she's not giving us a proper reason. She's just saying because it's
I'm
popular.
not following what she's asking us to do.
She's not.
And 64 countries is meaningless, there might be 350 countries in the world, and only 64 of them are labeled.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Here's another one. People are going to start realizing, why take those antibiotics that are extracts of mushrooms? Why not just have the mushrooms?
Well, that's a good question. The mushrooms are much better.
Well, maybe if you're making a salad, they're better.
No, they're better.
Oh, you're talking about mushrooms.
Yes, I'm talking
Okay.
about mushrooms.
He's talking. Okay, that's a different kind of mushroom.
I'm so excited.
Same,
Sorry.
assuming concentration of whatever, same, the extract that they are.
Yeah, he's saying no. They look similar. Must be the same thing. You would call this.
Antibiotics, mold.
Yeah.
Mold and mushrooms are.
Okay, mold and mushroom is not the same thing.
That's okay.
Yeah. This is what you call an association fallacy. So he sees some similarities. He's assuming that they have some other similarities, but they don't necessarily. What's up?
Would that just be a,
Yeah, it's
is that a fallacy? I don't know. But
It is an oversimplification, yeah. It's, in terms of logical fallacies, it would be a question of, well, what kind of oversimplification is it? And it would be, in this case, an association.
Association, I got it right.
Good job, Joy.
I got one.
Jim Carrey. I refuse to feel guilty. Is this recording? Nope, it wasn't. Okay. I refuse to feel guilty. I feel guilty about too much in my life, not about money. I went through periods when I had nothing. So somebody in my family had to get stinking wealthy.
Sounds like a joke.
maybe it is a joke. Sometimes people say logical fallacies and it's just a joke and you see it because it's funny. But there is definitely one in here.
Contradiction.
Think about somebody who's gambling at a casino. This comes up a lot.
The odds would be that he thinks because nobody in his family got rich, somebody had to.
So he thinks the odds were in his favor, yeah? Was he correct about that? Is that how odds work?
Confusing hazard for his life. It was.
Yes, right.
I mean, it makes him rich.
He's right for it in his case.
Well, in retrospect,
Yeah, that's it.
it just happened that way. But if you'd have met him, if I was suffering in life and I made this prediction, I said, hey guys, I've been suffering for a long time. I'm sure I'm going to get rich soon, like Jim Carrey.
It's more like a hindsight thing.
Yeah, there's a hindsight thing. I'm looking for, this is called the gambler's fallacy. A lot of times if you see somebody gambling, they think when they've lost many times in a row, they're due for a win. But they're not, right? Because it's a game of chance. Just because you lost 10 times in a row, it doesn't mean you're going to win now. It's the same kind of thing. Just because you suffered in life, a lot of people suffer, doesn't mean you're due for some kind of victory. You know what? Let's move on. So moving on. I'm glad you guys are so interested in chatting about this. Yeah, no, that's it. So let me tell you about sophistry. And so I learned about logical fallacies, and I started to notice them, and it started to bug me. But it's hard to learn about them because it's pretty much just, you just have books where you can read about them. And I found that I wanted something more. So I thought, well, what if I just took all these famous quotes and made a game where you get a quote, and the object of the game is to match it with the actual fallacy. So that's the principle of sophistry. And so the benefits of having this as a game is, first of all, it's fun. The game is free and it's web-based, so you don't need to install apps, you don't need to buy anything, you just pull out your phone, you can play with your friends. There's different ways that you can play. You can play it alone and practice, so that next time when you play against your friends, you're going to kick their ass. You can play it in multiplayer, which is the way you would play it normally, just with your friends. You get together, 3-4 people, play against each other. And there's also what I call arena, which is made for events like this, or for something like a classroom or a workshop, which is where you can have the whole room get together in teams, and everybody plays together.
So you say it's free?
Yeah, it's free.
That's all you heard.
How long?
Forever.
Okay.
That's
Free
awesome.
forever.
That's all you
We take
heard.
your word for it.
I'm going to get to this later, how I ask for help. I do ask for donations because there's a web server and stuff, but it's basically free. There's no upgrade, no subscription. It requires quick thinking, right? When you're reading about logical fallacies in a book and you're trying to remember them, it's not very helpful. It's kind of like, I like to think of how it's kind of like looking at an animal in the zoo. Whereas when you play sophistry, you're seeing real fallacies that people actually used when they were speaking, and you have to be careful. So that's kind of like, I think it was like seeing an animal in the wild versus seeing it in the zoo. And also, what's really fun is it has a database of all the fallacies that are in the game. So I know when I was doing workshops in the past about logical fallacies, I would want examples, and it takes so long to try and find actual famous examples. Well, now I have a database. There's hundreds of them in there. You can just go on the website, look them up. You can download those images, use them in presentations or whatever you want. I'll tell you a little about the history. I've been working on this for 5 years, off and on, here and there. So this is what it looked like before. That was the first version, just to show you how ugly it was. Here's some pictures of the cards. Some of you might remember playing this at some events in the past. Yeah, exactly. It looks so ugly now, doesn't it? It's so plain and boring. Then we went through a branding project where we tried different logos. So if we've been friends for a while, maybe you saw me post this on Facebook where we had all these different versions. Some of them are kind of cool. Oh, see, this was where we came up with this idea of cutting out the letters, where I did. And these are the 3 people who were principally involved in it. Me, Owen Thomas, who did the brand design, so the logo, The slogan, the game of half-truths, that's all his genius. And Kaylin, who did the user experience design and the graphic design. So when you look at this new look with these fancy cards, that's all Kaylin. And that's a screenshot of what it looks like now.